As a kid, I loved to play sports with my friends. It usually didn't matter whether it was hockey or soccer or baseball. It was just great fun to be outside with my friends. But the part I liked least about playing sports was how we picked teams. I was one of those kids who wasn't very good. I wasn't the biggest, I wasn't the fastest, I wasn't the strongest. Now, if there were 10 kids playing hockey, I usually went in the fourth round, if you understand what I'm saying. It was such an awful feeling, I struggled because I was always one of the last kids picked. Why is it that is such an awful feeling? And I think it's because we feel like we don't belong. Have you ever felt like you didn't fit in, like you didn't belong? Every one of us desires to belong, to find a place where we are loved, appreciated, and accepted for who we are. We are in week 3 of our preaching series, The People Shall Respond, as we look at how in the midst of a crisis, how we are to live, grow, and respond in our faith. And today, we are talking about community. Now, for those who may be feeling isolated or alone, we have a solution in this time of crisis, because no one needs to feel the anxiety of being alone. We are social beings, aren't we? We are made for community. We are made for relationship. That's why God made us. He made us to be in relationship with Him and with each other. And as social beings, we all desire to be loved and to love, to be served and to serve, to be supported and to support, to belong. Our faith, when it is rightly ordered, is reciprocal in all that we do. And it's in this context that we look at the first chapter of St. Peter, our second reading today, as he says, "Come to him, the living stone, and like living stones, let yourselves be built into a spiritual house." St. Peter encourages the readers to become part of a group, living stones, a chosen race, God's own people, as verse 9 says, with Jesus as our cornerstone. Now, why does Peter use the analogy of stones? He points out that Jesus is fulfilling the prophecy of the Old Testament. See, using stones describe the early church. As Peter is speaking to the Jewish people, he's using an analogy that they could understand, stones, because the temple was made of stones. It's where they worshiped. It's where God lived. This was the Old Testament, but now in the New Testament, with Jesus, we are the stones. We are not made of physical stones, but spiritual stones. And Jesus is our cornerstone. He is the first stone, the stone that the whole church is built upon. Without the cornerstone, the church cannot survive. And when I think of stones and how we all knit together and fit together as a church, I think about an inukshuk. Now, inukshuks are found mostly in the north. They are navigational aids for travelers. And I think of the inukshuk primarily because it is made of stones. Each and every stone is as important as the next, the one that it sits next to. Now, what happens if you remove a stone from an inukshuk? The whole thing comes crumbling down. Each of the stones of the inukshuk is important one to the other. The living stones of the church is also critical each one to the other, to the overall structure. We, the church, are made up of living stones, spiritual stones, and Jesus is our cornerstone. In most of his teachings, Jesus spoke to people as a group. Did you know the words one another appear 59 times in the New Testament? It says, greet one another, serve one another, admonish one another, pray for one another, and most importantly, love one another. All these things that Jesus asks us to do, we do in a small group where we are cared for and encouraged by each other. We are living stones. We desire to belong. And it's in this mind that we are launching, with this in mind, that we are launching our new life groups this weekend here at St. Benedict. It rings true that we celebrate on Sundays as a large group, which is very important here at Mass on the weekends, but we experience community in small groups. And now here's a sense of what I'm talking about. Now, what happens out in the foyer after Mass when we're all here? The altar servers lead us out from Mass. The priests go to the front door and say goodbye to people as they leave. And people start to gather in groups. Someone's at the Welcome Center, answering any questions that someone may have. Families gather. There are these groups everywhere, chatting, socializing, catching up on the news. They are connecting. This is a sense of the community that is found in small groups. Jesus encouraged us to be in a life group. Matthew 18:20 says, "For where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there am I in the midst of them." Now, for us, we want to take Jesus' idea of 2 or 3 and make it bigger. And here's why. If I was in a group of 3 people and 2 people didn't show up, that would just be me. And that clearly wouldn't work. Ideally, life groups are 6 to 10 people who gather for 90 minutes bi-weekly. And normally, life groups would gather in their homes, but for now, we are online for obvious reasons. And by the way, we will have some life groups that are 100% online. So if you live in a different city, a different province, or even a different country, you can belong to a St. Benedict life group if you choose. We have a place for you to belong to. Now, if you're familiar with our Connect groups and our discipleship groups, you might be wondering what's happening with those. We are bringing all the groups under the one umbrella of life groups. We certainly celebrate the past successes that the Connect groups and the discipleship groups have had with our parishioners. They have been very life-giving to a lot of people. Consider life groups, the Connect groups, and discipleship groups 2.0. Now, what does it mean to connect, to grow, and to pray? Connect means to socialize, to catch up, to have fun. Grow. Well, this can be done through live talks, a review and discussion of the previous Sunday's homily, a faith study, something that helps you grow deeper in your faith, and pray. Pray should be self-explanatory. It involves prayer and worship, praise and worship, some form of thanksgiving to God. Belonging to a group is life-giving. I'd like you to meet Sandy. She belongs to one of our life groups. Sandy says this: "When I joined in Alpha in 2018, I had no idea what to expect. I had started coming to St. Benedict Parish, and I heard about Alpha. I thought that it would be a good way to meet some new people and maybe have an opportunity to learn more about the Bible. Alpha and the weekend away was life-changing. I belong to a group, and I am still on my journey. Alpha was a wonderful start for Sandy. Her next step into a life group helped her grow in her faith and experience true community. Sandy says, I am learning with the support of many beautiful people at St. Benedict. I love you and thank you all from the bottom of my heart. Jeff Nephew and his wife Kate and their 3 kids are parishioners who belong to one of our largest life groups. And Jeff told me that what it means to them and their family to belong to their group. Jeff says, we heard about the group and thought it would be a fun way to meet new people and learn. After 2 years of belonging to this group, they are among our best friends. Our bi-weekly gatherings are full of faith, fun, and food. Between our gatherings, we are constantly offering prayers for each other, supporting and encouraging one another. Our family cherishes this group. Isn't God awesome? It is amazing when we give our yes to him and then let the Holy Spirit do the rest. Connect, grow, and pray. Now you're probably wondering, how do I get involved? Just go to our website, stbenedict.ca. And in the middle of the page, you will click on our Life Groups tab. That will take you to the Life Groups page. There you have 2 options. If you feel called to lead a life group, there's an option to choose to be a leader. Or if you want to join as a participant, click on that option. Just fill out your contact information and boom, you're done. Someone will follow up with you for next steps. Hebrews 10 says, let us consider how to stir one another up to love and good works, not neglecting to meet together. 1 Thessalonians says, encourage one another and build one another up. These are all components of life groups. Our faith was not meant to be vertical only, just me and God. Personal time with God is essential to growing in faith, spending time in prayer, Eucharistic adoration, that one-on-one meditation on God's goodness. It's very important. But we also belong to a faith community. How I live my life is not meant to be just vertical. It is also meant to be horizontal out to my brothers and sisters in Christ. We celebrate as a large group with Mass and praise and worship events and so on, but we also have the ability to be in small groups, to be fed spiritually, and to feed others. God calls you to live a faith-filled life, vertical and horizontal, in a large group and in a small group. It is not either or, but both and. As a parish, having everyone in the St. Benedict family growing deeper in the relationship with Jesus Christ is the purpose of life groups. I'm convinced of what I said earlier. We celebrate God's goodness as a large group, but we experience Christian, authentic community in a small group. I am so convinced of this new life groups that my wife and I, Patty, have decided we will start and lead a life group ourselves. I'm excited for what it offers us. I'm also pumped and psyched to see how it's going to transform the lives of so many of our people, of our parishioners. We have already asked a couple of people to be in our life group already. And there's one particular couple who I am praying for. We have asked for them to join our group because they currently are not living out their faith. They're not practicing their faith. And I am convicted that this is the opportunity for them to begin that relationship with Jesus that they long for. Our new life groups is open for business. So after Mass, check out the website, go to the Life Groups tab, and smash that button and sign up. So, you're probably wondering, as a kid, how I solved my dilemma of being the 8th kid picked out of 10 kids to play sports. I got a little tired of riding the pine, as it were, so much so that I got splinters. Now, have you ever heard that expression, riding the pine? Last night when Father Simon and Father Alex and Seminarian Dan and I were going over the homily, Father Simon had never heard of the concept of riding the pine. So if you don't know what riding the pine means, it means sitting on the bench a lot. And so I was thinking, well, Father Simon, how does he not know this? And I kind of felt bad for him. And then, only to realize that Father Alex didn't know what it meant either. So I just feel old. Obviously, they have never watched a Montreal Canadiens game where Danny Gallivan was doing the color commentating. But I'd like to say that I practiced more, I honed my skills, I got better. This is not what happened. In my teens, I simply moved sports. I started playing tennis, I took up mountain biking, and I started running a lot. None of these are team sports. For a time, I was a team of one, which was fine for a little while, but then it got boring and the company was lousy. So I returned to team sports. On a team, I did feel like I was home, that I belonged. I was appreciated by my teammates, and I appreciated them. Everyone needs a team or a group, a place to be loved, a place to belong, a place to be a living stone.